So welcome to the July session of our 2025 Dr. Elizabeth Webb Professional Learning Series. We are really excited this evening to have Dr. Anna Yang. She is an instructional coach for the Multilingual Learner Program Office here in Gwinnett County Public Schools. This is her 21st year in education, and she has extensive experience supporting multilingual learners through teacher coaching, professional learning, policy and advocacy, and she's also serving this year as the second vice president for Georgia TESOL. So she is very knowledgeable about a lot of things regarding our multilingual learners in the state of Georgia and advocacy for them. She previously served as the project coordinator and de facto instructor for the NPD grant through the Office of English Language Acquisition, and she was an endorsed ESOL teacher. She also taught middle and high school social studies, integrating language support for multilingual learners. She's holding a bachelor's of science in secondary education history from Toccoa Falls College, where she minored in TESOL and earned a master's of education in TESOL from the University of Georgia, and then went on to earn her PhD in TESOL from also the University of Georgia, and was recently awarded something with literacy from the University of Georgia. So she has a wealth of experience, and we're really excited to hear the strategies and tools that she has for us regarding teaching of multilingual learners. And with that, I am going to pass it over to Dr. Yang.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. And while I am sharing my screen, FYI, it was the UGA Language and Literacy Education Department Distinguished Alumni Award. That was what that award was. So it was very humbling to be recognized as a distinguished alumni. So I graduated in 2020 pandemic year. And have been serving multilingual learners in various capacities. And so, it's just nice to be recognized and honored, but also very humbling to be recognized by that faculty. So they just are stellar, stellar group of people, lovely human beings. So with all that said, the title and the overview of the session tonight is pretty generic. It was kind of written just more as an overview, as an opportunity to pull from what we had shared at like the fall conference and to be able to bring that back to you guys and to be able to share it with you all in this virtual space in the event that you weren't able to attend. But I'm deviating a little bit from it. I'm taking a moment of privilege to share strategies and tools, but in a different capacity, in a different manner. And so tonight, my focus is going to be on quality interactions and how building quality interactions begins right now. It is July 17th. Today is actually the first day that our instructional coaches and assistant principals here in our school district, Gwinnett County Public Schools, are back in the offices. And so today was my first day back on this job, and our teachers come back in like a week and a day, and then our kids will come back pretty soon. And so I'm glad and grateful that you guys are all willing to spend some time behind a screen with me tonight, because I want to be able to share with you just some food for thought to get you ready to get going this school year and to truly, really leverage the beginning of the school year as the ripest opportunity to start laying the foundation to create a culture for quality interactions. So that's basically the premise for tonight as a high level overview. I did also want to just add a couple of things to my bio so that you know me on a professional level and on a personal level as well. So as Maria shared, currently I'm an instructional coach. I did formerly teach social studies in the high school and in the middle school levels. Got my bachelor's in secondary education history, minored in TESOL, and then worked on my PhD and my MED from UGA. I was originally born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas, so I come from the Midwest. But my ancestry is actually Hmong. It's a smaller ethnic group that is not as well known to many folks when it comes to being of Asian ancestry. The Hmong people are a small group of ethnic folks who lived in or live still in the mountains of Laos and China, Thailand, Vietnam. We speak a very different, unique language, have different cultural and religious practices, and are just really different from the Asians who live in that area. I would say we probably most relate to the Chinese in terms of like our language. And it makes sense because apparently historically we had some relationships with the Chinese people. And y'all probably know, if you have any experience with China, that in addition to the main Han Chinese people, there are thousands of different smaller minority groups who live in China who are all under the Chinese government. So apparently that's where the Hmong came from. My husband and I have been married for 20 years now. His name is Abraham. We call him Abe for short. He always jokes that no one calls him Abraham unless he's in trouble. And then I have 4 girls who are 2, 8, 9, almost 10, and 13. This has been a giant year for us, with somebody turning double digits and then somebody becoming a teenager. So it's been fun. Maria and I are colleagues, so she hears my stories all the time about my 4 crazy girls. So anyway, with all that said, let's get going. Here's our learning goal for today. For this evening, my hope is that you will be able to walk away knowing what this concept of quality student interactions is, in the way that it can enhance engagement and promote academic achievement for your multilingual learners. In addition to that, I also want to be able to share with you resources and strategies to help you to facilitate quality student interactions as you head back into the classrooms or head back to support teachers in the classrooms this fall. So here is our first little opportunity to interact. Haha, I was like, I wonder if this is actually going to be a thing. So this is our turn and talk, but I call it the turn on your camera and talk opportunity. So if you are willing to engage with me, I'd love to hear from you. How do you define quality interactions, and in what ways do you already engage your MLs in quality interactions? So I'll give you a minute to think, and if you want to come off mute and share, please do so. If you
Well,
want to type it in the chat, you can as well. Oh, thank you, Jenny.
okay. So this coming year, let me just preface it with this. This coming year is going to be a big change for me. So I'm really curious to see what strategies you have in place, because I've used certain programs, and you know how things are. Whatever program you're giving, you take the best of it and put it
Mhm.
before the student. So next year, all of my programs are changing. So that's going to be very interesting. But recently, in one of my visits by my director, she left me a little message that said, you are always very intentional with your teaching. So I try to use whatever they're doing in the classroom and blend it in with what I'm doing, as well as take them where they are as a language learner. So it's almost like, 2 separate lessons. We were using a program online that was called Imagine Learning. I'm not
Mhm.
sure if anybody's familiar with that.
We are very
And
familiar with
so
Imagine
we've
Learning.
used it for a couple of years now. And so one thing I really liked about it is that you could create a playlist with certain skills and drop it in, and it would kind of play in front of whatever pathway they were on. So I would communicate with the teachers to say, hey, what are you guys going to be doing next? And they would let me know. And then so I would create a playlist for them. And they were able to actually use that information in the classroom. And then the students, when they were in the classroom without me even being there, they would tell their teacher participating in the conversation, hey, I have an example from, our Imagine Learning program. So, that quality interaction they had with me, with the
Yeah.
program, and then carrying it over into the classroom, I felt like was really beneficial to the
Oh,
student.
I love that. So you gave them an opportunity, a safe space to practice, built their confidence, and then they went into their classrooms and were able to take what you shared and built them up for, and had these wonderful quality interactions with their classmates. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Jenny, what is your context? Where do you teach and what grade level content do you teach?
So I'm at Effingham County. I'm at South
Yeah.
Effingham Elementary. Um, so I'm teaching K through 2. That's what I've
Okay.
taught the last couple of years. Prior to that, I started with that county in 2014, 15, and I would have like 4 schools I would go to. So I was always running around like a little chicken with my head chopped off. I used to
Yeah.
I used to joke with the teachers I was faster than the leprechaun because I felt like at the time things weren't intentional. I mean, I tried to make them,
Mhm.
but by the time I got in, it was already time for me to go to the next school. So I'm happy to be just at one school, and I'm happy to be with just a set grade level now
Love that.
because you
That's
can
awesome.
be more intentional that way.
That's wonderful. Effingham County, I've heard good things from you guys. I think we sat in a session at the symposium where your accountability director shared about the modified assessment that y'all have been building for newcomers. So
Right.
really
Yeah.
awesome. Cool. All right. Tiffany, Valerie, Danielle, Anne Marie, anybody would like to hop on and share?
I think using some of Merit's methods in my class with regard to social studies, making sure that my students use the academic language and that they're talking to each other, making sure that I am not the center of
Mm,
attention all the time. I had a problem with that at times, making sure that my kids, working on the funds of knowledge, making sure that I start with their background and incorporating that into my lesson as opposed to ending with it, starting with
mhm,
it.
mhm.
And then they are more engaged and willing to participate when they can see the connection between their life and the content I'm bringing in social studies.
That makes such a huge difference. Like being, and again, going back to what Jenny talked about with being intentional, right? Like really getting to know the students and be able to capitalize on those funds of knowledge, the resources that they already bring that are so rich in their communities. And it helps with that buy-in and helps them to be able to connect to those things that you're teaching them. So that does make a difference with quality interactions, for sure. All right. Well, let's hop right into it then. Let's get to this work on quality interactions. I'll share with you a little bit about like how we came upon this as a district and what that's done for us. So we actually pushed out a request for various organizations to come in and to do an internal audit of our program a couple years ago. And in the past school year, that organization, West Ed, completed their work with us. And one of the things that they did when they came in to do the audit was they went and observed classrooms and they were looking specifically for what they had termed quality interaction. So West Ed does a lot of work with school districts. They are a nonprofit, but they partner to do a lot of like these internal things in addition to providing professional learning. So if you've ever heard of West Ed, they're just a wealth of resources. So what they did specifically when it came to looking at our classrooms was they were trying to figure out what these quality interactions look like. And here's a little bit of the background, the reason why this is so important. So when it comes to student talk in particular, we all know that he who talks the most does the most learning. And so in a classroom, look at Flanders' study that goes way back to 1970. When it comes to teacher talk, if the teacher talks the majority of the time, we find that the students are more so low achieving. So in classrooms that were low achieving, the teacher spoke 80% of the time. But in classrooms where the students were high achieving, the teachers only average 55% talk time. So the students are engaging so much more in this productive talk, and as a result, are achieving better. So this is an issue. And when it comes to multilingual learners in particular, the issue is even more exacerbated. If you are familiar with Ivania Soto's work on shadowing, and Ivania Soto passed away, I think I want to say last year, she did some phenomenal work on ML shadowing, EL shadowing. Basically, she chose multilingual learners in schools and followed them all day long. And one of the things that she looked for specifically was how much interaction these students were engaging in, productive conversation, productive talk in an entire school day. And this is what she found. 5 to 10%. The average time that MLs were engaged in speaking was 5 to 10%, which is in contrast to what Pauline Gibbons tells us, based on her 2015 work, that MLs should be spending at least 30% of their day in academic talk. A couple years ago, I went to the WIDA conference in, where was this one? Kentucky? Louisville. And in Louisville, a couple of gals, they're instructional coaches and directors from Delaware, also ran a similar study and found that in their school districts, a smaller Delaware school district, again, teachers were doing majority of the talking and the students were mainly listening to the teachers talk. So it is a problem. And this is the reason why WestEd was looking for quality interactions, because they knew that our MLs, in order for them to truly be engaged in the best quality instruction, they have to be engaged in quality interactions. Quality interactions are purposeful, sustained exchanges where the students actively co-construct knowledge, engage in meaningful dialogue, and practice academic language within a supportive, collaborative community that fosters critical thinking and autonomy. So just think about that for a minute. It's a sustained exchange. The students co-construct knowledge with each other. Their dialogue is meaningful. They're practicing academic language, but the environment itself is supportive and collaborative and truly fosters critical thinking and autonomy. This little chart here shows us what quality student interaction is, those various things that I just shared, and what it is not. And it's definitely not scripted. It's not dominated by one student, one person. It's not just reporting what we already know. Quality interactions really digs into students and their thoughts and getting them to be critical in their thinking and how they're producing language. When it came to looking for quality student interactions, these were the different things that WestEd was looking for. So this was basically listed on their rubric. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for students participating in sustained oral interactions, which basically means that they are in these extended utterances where there are multiple turns. It's not just one exchange, it's multiple exchanges going back and forth about disciplinary ideas with other students and with the teacher. The interactions are reciprocal, where they are building off of each other, listening to each other attentively as they're considering their responses. And the teacher is using open-ended questions. So they're looking for open-ended questions. They're looking for how the students are reciprocating with each other. They're looking for the sustained oral interactions. So this is one of the things that our team at the district level in Gwinnett has really begun to lean into and how we can support our schools with quality interactions. Because as WestEd said, it's through these continuous opportunities that our MLs learn to make sense of new concepts. They can build trust with their peers and develop the language skills that they need to thrive academically and socially. So again, those who talk the most do the most learning. But the question is how do we do this? How can we create more purposeful and sustained opportunities for MLs in our schools to engage in meaningful quality interactions? And so that's where we're headed next. This is what you're here for tonight, is what are these strategies? Before we do that, though, I do want to lean into the WIDA Candy philosophy. As the state of Georgia, we are a WIDA state, and WIDA is responsible for our assessments, our professional learning, and basically underscores the professional learning, not the professional learning, the actual standards that we use to teach our multilingual learners when it comes specifically to the world of ESOL, whether we're content teachers or ESOL teachers. And this WIDA Candy philosophy helps us to lean into those things some of you guys already talked about, both Jenny and Tiffany, the linguistic assets, the cultural assets, the experiential, the socio-emotional assets, because at the end of the day, focusing on what our MLs can do sends a powerful message that these kids, though they are from these different beautiful backgrounds, contribute so much to our systems, our communities. So we want to ground ourselves in this because at the end of the day, it is not about what they cannot do. It is about what they can do. When it comes to quality interactions, we need to be focused on what they can do and how they can contribute and engage in quality interactions. Okay, so here are some things to think about when it comes to this. The work of being able to develop an environment where your students can engage in quality interactions is not something that can be done immediately and overnight. We find that the classrooms where the best quality interactions take place are classrooms where teachers have cultivated it. They've nurtured it. They've built it from day one. And like I was sharing with you guys at the beginning tonight, The opportunity is ripe. We are about to get started on a new school year, and this is the right time to start thinking about how you can lay the foundation brick by brick in preparation for your students so that they have these habits of collaboration ready to go to be engaged in quality interaction. So we're going to take a look at 3 things: norms, conversation goals, and what are called conversation cues. Some of these might be familiar, some of them might be new. We are recording this. You can always come back and refer to it as well. And you can always reach out to me with any questions, and I will be happy to send you resources. So when it comes to norms, what I highlighted here is what I hope you take away from this. Norms are obviously things that we agree on that are expected of each other, right? They're when it comes to working in groups. But norms are a way that we honor the other people who are in the group with us. Because norms are not just about behaviors. And here's the thing too, there are behavioral norms, and you're going to set those up from day one with your kiddos. You're going to teach them the routines. You're going to teach them how to ask you to use the bathroom, how to get up out of their seats. You're going to teach them what to do when the teacher is talking to another student. You're going to teach those behavioral norms. But when it comes to conversations, there also have to be conversational norms, expectations from each other of how we show up so that that way we're honoring what we each need. Anna is a different person from Danielle. Danielle needs something specific from Anna, and Anna needs something specific from Danielle. So we have to work with each other, and we have to lean into what we each need to be able to participate meaningfully in a conversation. So norms are going to be critical because they lay the foundation, they level set for the kids and for us so that we're ready to engage in this conversation. So norm setting is a critical piece that you want to start thinking about leveraging as you launch into this school year. It is something that helps with the affective filter. We've all done the research as ESOL teachers. We know about Krashen's work around the affective filter and how a low stress environment is so critical. And that's what norms do. Norms also help to cultivate a low stress environment so that our ML students are ready to engage in conversations with each other. Y'all know, you've seen this with your kids. There is nothing more frightening for an ML student, especially at lower levels of proficiency, than having to talk. You're producing language in a language that's not what goes on in your brain all the time. There's so much mental gymnastics that has to happen. So if the stress is high, they're not going to want to engage, which holds them back from being able to really achieve, because that quality interaction is what is necessary for them to be able to really truly grow linguistically and academically. So this norm setting process is a really critical piece. So here are some examples of norms. Before getting started in any small group conversations, even in like a small turn and talk, it's important to just level set. If you're working with kids in small groups, let them start thinking about what they need from each other. What do you need from me? What do I need from you? Maybe I need for you to not always talk all the time. I need for you to allow me to come into the conversation. I need for you to invite me into the conversation. Maybe I'm somebody who doesn't talk enough, and so I need to really be willing to share my ideas. And so we want from each other to be willing to engage in these conversations by sharing our ideas. And so these norms are things that are going to help the kids to know what they are supposed to be expecting of each other. Some things that we've done with kids in the past and with even teachers, because we do this as educators as well when we're in professional learning settings. We will talk about norms because it's what we need from each other. So we'll talk about things like what invites you into a conversation and what shuts you down from a conversation. And if this is what shuts you down, then what do you need to be able to be willing to come back into that conversation? And that's how you start to develop these different kinds of norms. So a couple of resources here. The left one here is one that comes from the Merit Center. Merit is the multilingual learner education and research on instruction something. They used to be known as Class A. You might have heard of them as Class A maybe once upon a time, and you'll see Class A is still listed here on these various documents. But these are norms that they have shared with teachers who have done their Foundational Institute. You can, if you've done the Foundational Institute, you can probably find these on their website and their resources. The center one is really something that teachers have created as norms for the kids themselves to be able to reflect on. Sometimes it's harder for them to figure out what it is that they need, so it might be helpful to give them some things to think about. This is a jumping off point, if you will, of what we need from each other. And then the last visual over here, I'd put in circle where the norms are located. So this is something that like a class created for these norms. And really the thing about norms is they're going to vary from group to group because the kids are going to be different. If you keep kids in one group for a little while, they're going to have a group of norms, a set of norms that they will be working on. But once you switch that group up, a new set of norms really needs to be created because the group is different, the dynamic is different, the kids need different things from each other. So norms are foundational. Norms are foundational. The next resource, the next tool to be thinking about when it comes to these habits of collaboration and getting started, getting us to the point where our kids are going to truly be able to engage in quality interactions, are goals. Where the norms were things that we did for each other, the goals are things that we're doing for ourselves. Norms help us to be norms help us to be reflective of what our team members need from us, our group members need from us, but goals are for us to think about how we show up in conversations. So here's what Paula Mellon and Rebecca Hickson and Jody Weber said about norms. They found that in classrooms where students consistently set goals for interaction and share them with each other, because that's the thing. You can't just set a goal. You've got to also share the goal with the rest of your group. These kiddos became more reflective and self-motivated in their own learning. They were more collaborative and empathetic and supportive of their peers. So once you've established the norms and you review them, the next step would be to allow the kids to think about how they show up in conversations and for them to figure out what those challenges are so they can ameliorate those challenges with a goal. So an example up there is in conversations, my challenge is that I interrupt others. So my goal in this conversation or in the next couple of weeks is to work on allowing others to complete their thoughts. And so the kids would share this with each other so that they can help hold each other accountable for these goals as well. We're a small group, guys. At any point, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or just come off mute and interrupt me. You're welcome to do that. And the last habit of collaboration tool I want to share with you is not something that is merit related. This actually is a resource that comes from our EL education curriculum. It's not specific to EL education. EL education, like any other curriculum resource company, they curate resources for teachers from various, various folks and people out there who put things together. And conversation cues is one of those things. And so obviously EL education is an elementary K-8, like I think focused curriculum, but we find that these conversation cues are not just something to be used in elementary schools or even in the middle schools. We often take for granted that our kids, because they're secondary kids, in particular secondary kids, we take for granted that they know how to talk. Like we think they know how to talk because they're old, right? They're older kids. They're secondary kids. So they know how to talk, but they know how to talk socially. It's the academic side of that where they struggle. And that's the piece too that we have to really be intentional in developing in classrooms. So what these conversation cues are these 4 goals that are introduced one at a time. And what you do is you leverage these goals one at a time to promote productive and equitable conversations gradually over time so that you can move the students from whole group collaborative conversations into smaller group collaborative conversations. And so I'll go over each of the different goals with you in this next slide. Goal 1, we start out by just getting kids to want to talk and be understood. And to do that, some things to consider is, of course, providing think time, and then very specifically, giving the students the option to write or sketch their thoughts before they share. So you'll work on goal 1, just giving them the opportunity to start feeling comfortable sharing and being understood by each other. Then we move into goal 2, which is where we start to listen. This listening piece is often the most challenging because good listeners are not thinking about what they're going to say next. Good listeners should be able to paraphrase or to repeat what they heard. And that's something that's hard for kids. So this next goal is to practice being careful listeners of each other. And goal 3, once we've been able to get kids comfortable engaging and then that they're really doing a great job of listening to each other and being able to repeat and paraphrase, we work on deepening their thinking. This is where we start to ask higher order thinking questions, asking them to compare and to contrast and to analyze and to show with evidence. We have to do a lot of modeling in this part, in this goal. I've got to do a lot of modeling by thinking aloud, and being able to also have these model productive and equitable conversations whole group. So a lot of modeling is going to be needed. A lot of sentence structures and sentence stems are going to be necessary. So being really intentional about what is going to be expected in terms of their language production when you're asking them these kinds of questions. And then in goal 4, we work on getting them to think with others to expand the conversation. So yeah, so now they know how to like have these to respond to these deeper questions. How do we then get them to talk to each other about these deeper conversations? So you'll model conversations whole group. You will become, hopefully, by the time you get to goal 4, a facilitator and not somebody who's driving the conversations. And so once you've gotten those goals accomplished, you can release the students to being able to have conversations independently in small groups. You will still give them some supports. You can give them conversation cues as like a little mini poster or like on an anchor chart. Some teachers put them on a table stand so they can kind of flip through the different kinds of conversation cues. And you can work with the students to select 1 or 2 cues to try out and continue to monitor their progress. And so that's what these conversation cues are. So these are habits of collaboration. So these are foundational. So if you think about like a house, we're trying to build our students up. So we start with the foundation, we lay the foundation, we get them comfortable having conversations with each other. We've given them structures, we've given them goals, and we've given them norms. And now we can start to try out some different kinds of conversation structures. So that's where we're headed next. So this first structure I want to share with you is called QSSA. So we're going to watch a quick video, and it's going to give you an idea of what QSSA is. And then we'll talk a little bit about like how you might be able to vary that up and how you might be able to use it to really, truly build sustained quality interactions. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear sound, okay? I did put play sound.
But the relationship is proportional.
So QSSA is a way of providing a structured conversation for your students, and where you question, signal, stem, share, and then assess. The question is just based on what you're teaching that day.
What makes this relationship proportional?
Whenever you think that you know the answer to this question, I want you to put your hand on your head.
I think the signal helps a lot just because that just gives them that extra time to really be thoughtful and not just wait for somebody else to raise their hand and give them the answer.
This relationship is proportional because, and then you're going to fill it in.
You provide a stem so that they can respond in a complete sentence and use the academic vocabulary.
This relationship is proportional because it goes to an argument. This relationship is proportional because it has a constant of 28.
QSSA helps with interactions just by providing structure. Those interactions help. If they don't know the answer, their partner may, and so their partner can help them foster some new content and language.
The table is proportional because it's in y equals x form. And if it's labels, we could also use the labels. Yes.
Okay. And then after the sharing process, you just need to assess.
Kristen, can you fill in this sentence stem for me, please?
This relationship is proportional because it goes through the origin and it goes through 0, 0.
I think for English learners, this is really valuable because each step really gets them ready to speak. To help my ELs, I make sure I pair them with someone who can help them gain their language. So I'm not going to put a beginner with a beginner. I just want to make sure that they know what to do, and then they're really practicing those sentence stems. For my English learners, I have lots of anchor charts, and I always try to refer to one specific so they're not searching. My students really like QSSA. They are able to learn from one another, and they build a lot of confidence whenever they're using it because they're using that academic vocabulary. Just having conversation with others, they like that, but they're also learning from those conversations.
All right, so you heard her say QSSA, but it is also easily called QSSA. It's funny, people are like, you could say QSSA, but I think it falls off the tongue a little bit nicer when you say QSSA. Just maybe not having to say the S 3 times helps a little bit. So this is a structured strategy. It amplifies the turn and talk because in a regular turn and talk, you turn and you talk, but the issue with that is for the most part, the kids turn to each other and then they don't know where to start. And that's really challenging. It's crickets, right? They just kind of look at each other. So what happens with QSSA is because it's structured, you're giving the kids an opportunity to jump into the conversation because you've already given them the foundational pieces to help them get there. You're starting with an open-ended question, and then you're going to allow the students to answer independently, giving you a signal to let them know, to let you know that they have a response. That wait time piece is really critical for MLs, right? Kind of like what the teacher mentioned in the video. And then you're also going to provide a structure for them, some sort of a sentence stem or a starter. You can also include visuals and word banks so that way they have a jumping off point. So they have the sentence stem, the sentence starter, they have a word bank. Now they can respond to the question. And now that they have the response, then you'll choose a grouping strategy to help the students to be able to share their answers. And so it can be any kind of a grouping strategy. There are tons of Kagan strategies out there that really work well when it comes to like groupings. So just think about what works for you. What if you want to try something different, like look into it and see what you can try with your kids. It could be simple. It could be like just turn to a neighbor, or it could be find someone whose shoes matches the color of your shoes, to get them out of their seats and get them moving. And then what we've done with QSSA really to think about the sustained piece, moving beyond one interaction. We have considered asking the students to complete some sort of a collective task. So it might be you guys each have your own responses, but now we want you to come up with one response together. So it could be something like that, which moves them from just sharing their answers with each other to then having to have a real conversation. And then lastly, the A is assess. So I want you to think about QSSA and like how the foundations of norms and goals and how the conversation cues can already start to lay the foundation for being able to engage in a conversation structure such as this. This is very simple, but even a simple structure like this can benefit from having these various different habits of collaboration. In the next slide, we're going to take a look at an example. If you'd like to engage with me, you're more than welcome to engage with me. But I think for the sake of time, I'm going to move it quickly since it's already 6:46 and we're going to wrap up at 7. So here's an example of QSSA. How does QSSA encourage sustained student interactions, particularly in the explain? So this is like a science specific question. If you're familiar with science in the 5 E's, this is like a science specific question. Science has these 5 E's: engage, explore, explain, and something else. In the next one, you'll do a signal and ask the students to give you some sort of a signal. The teacher in the video, she asked them to put their hands on their head. It could be a thumbs up right here to the chest. I found that like if you are asking students to do something discreet, it's probably a lot better than like doing something that's kind of overt, because the intention of this is to not put pressure on students who need a little bit more time. So finding a discreet signal usually helps go a long way for those kiddos. And then what you do next is you give them the stems. So here's our stems. QSSA encourages sustained student interactions because, and then I provided a word bank. The STEM piece and the word bank piece is a process that is a little bit more laborious for teachers, because you actually have to think about an answer to the question. For the most part, we want to just ask the question and hope the kids can give us an answer. But in order for us to be able to provide the structures, we have to be intentional in coming up with a response and then being able to use that response to provide a structure. And the response is going to be specific to the kiddos in your grade level. So Jenny, you talked about having K2 students. So your STEM is going to be something that your K2 students can actually produce, right? And the words in your word bank are words that you're expecting them to be able to use in their responses. So it is going to require a little bit more work and intentionality in coming up with a STEM that's going to actually be really meaningful for the purpose of this strategy. And then of course, next is the share piece. And so in this case, our share is to turn to a partner. And of course, you don't have to do turn to a partner. You could do something more creative, but that's what we chose here. And then lastly, in the assess can also be done very differently. In this assess, we asked for our participants to choose a spokesperson to share with the group. But you could also ask your students to return to their journals and write their response, because maybe you started out by just asking them to talk to each other, and now they're going to write. But maybe you started out with them writing, and then now the last part is just talking. There are so many variations to QSSA, so many variations. So the world's your oyster when it comes to QSSA in terms of creating something quick and easy that you can use, but built on with all of the foundational pieces that you've leaned into. Okay. Any questions before I move into the next strategy? All right. So in this next strategy, I'm going to introduce to you all, if you've not yet been introduced to this strategy, instructional conversations or joint productive activities. So this, if you'll notice, the UGA Merit logo is up here. This is something specifically that the Merit Center trains teachers on. And they do this training multiple times during the year, virtually, in person. Once upon a time, it used to be all in person, and they would do it at really glamorous places like Amicalola Retreat or something. And you would go away for 4 days and tuck away in the mountains and just learn from all these other teachers and these amazing women from the UGA Merit Center. And so they still have these offerings available. If you are interested in it, you can go online to their website and register for their offerings. But it's not something that, if you don't have a lot of time or the money to be able to like learn about, it's not something that you have to actually engage in. It's obviously recommended that you engage in the training, but it's something that you can pick up from. You can pick up pieces from learning about what these instructional conversation strategies are, bringing them back into your classroom. So here's an example of an ICJPA, an instructional conversation joint productive activity.
Next sentence. Because Toby's Bugatti was in the shop.
That's a fragment.
It's a fragment.
That's
Yeah.
so
Not a
because
complete thought.
because it's like because well, a sentence shouldn't be so short. Like
If there was a comma between them and there's another sentence there, it could be.
it could be a comprehensive. I agree with Toby and with Josh and Tia, because I think it's a fragment because it doesn't have like a complete sentence. It just starts with because Toby's Bugatti was in the shop. It doesn't tell why his Bugatti was in the shop.
I respectfully agree with everyone because it doesn't have a main idea. It's just like a random fragment that, like, what is it about? Why is it in the shop?
And I have something to
Yeah,
add.
like what happened to it?
If I went up to somebody and said, because Toby's Bugatti was in the shop, they wouldn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Jonas?
I think it is fragment because it's not complete sentence. Or it just start because.
You can start because, but it doesn't have.
It doesn't have like a
comma and then another sentence.
Yeah.
So fragment. Everyone agrees. Wait, do you agree, Kennedy?
Yes.
All right, so that is an ICJPA. The next video I want to show you is a JPA. It's just an independent JPA. Oh, you know what happened? I got signed out. Don't you just love our school system?
It's like, well, it does it like just be like around 4,
Yep.
5,
Yes.
so it'll do district wide. But I
Yep.
don't know why it did it again now.
Well, it probably already did it, but because I was like I was already like I'm in sharing screen and everything, it just didn't show up. But all right, we're back in business. Okay, so I want to show you this video. Let's go slideshow mode. Should work now. So let's see. Showing you like a 1-minute clip.
Executive branch leader is called a president.
Where does that go?
Oh.
Parliamentary or?
I think it goes in presidential.
Wow.
Yeah, it is because executive is president, legislative.
Oh my
Oh no,
God.
I didn't see that.
I think so.
I didn't see that.
I think that because parliamentary has a chief.
Isn't it prime minister?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay, it's presidential.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I spy with my little arm. Read it.
Okay, Mexico.
Mexico?
Mexico.
That's president.
That's presidential.
Yeah. You don't even need to read it.
Nicely done.
Alright, you're next, Cannon.
feel like he looked at it.
No. United Kingdom, we're not going.
Oh. Don't tell it. Don't tell it.
Example. Parliamentary.
It's the United Kingdom.
I think it's parliamentary.
It is. I googled it.
All right. That is an independent JPA. Okay, so here are what these acronyms stand for. So as I shared with you guys, this instructional conversation work is something that we all picked up from in the district through the Merit Center at UGA. And their work is all centered around these ICs and ICJPAs. A JPA is a joint productive activity. So if you're into the research, look into the CREED standards. The CREED standards are these 5 different standards that have been research-based to be effective with students from diverse backgrounds. And JPA and IC are actually two separate standards that are part of the CREED standards. In JPA, the students and the teachers work together to complete and create a joint productive activity. And in IC, the teachers and the students are engaged in conversation with each other. But what the Merit Center found is that the IC in and of itself can be a type of JPA. Because what you saw earlier with Nikki Hill and her Shiloh Elementary kids is that Nikki was facilitating, but did you actually hear Nikki talk? No, she actually didn't say a word in that little JPA activity, but she was still there. She's facilitating, and her job is to be the voice that moves the students along, to make sure that if students aren't participating, she's going to invite them in, to clarify misconceptions, to paraphrase things that might be missed by the students. And so she's still present in an ICJPA. In the second video, you heard me in the background, but technically was there a teacher in that small group? No. So in the second group, it's an independent JPA, typically student-led conversations built around completing a product. In the first video with Shiloh, what were the students doing? What was their product? Do you remember?
In the first video, they were having to determine whether that phrase was a fragment or a sentence.
Right, right. So what we call that is like typically a T-chart. It would be a T-chart where you would either put that little sentence, that phrase in either the fragment column or the sentence column, right? So if it's a fragment, you put it here. If it's a sentence, you put it here. And collectively, they decided on whether it was a sentence or whether it was a fragment. In the second video, what was the product that the students were creating?
It was like a Venn diagram, right?
Yes. Yep, it was a Venn diagram. So in the second video, these are 6th grade students, and they are working on sorting, comparing, contrasting parliamentary presidential democracies in Latin America. And so what we did, I worked with a teacher on this JPA in particular. What we did was we gave them the cards, and we had to learn through several different types of trial and experiences of trial and error what worked best. And what we found is if you just give the students the cards, one student will take control of it and just sort them all, right? And so what we told them was to play like Uno with it. You saw one of the kiddos who was like trying to shuffle the cards, right? And so we asked them kind of play Uno with it and turn them upside down, give everybody a specific set amount of cards, take turns going through it so that way everyone contributes. And you want everyone to agree with you to make sure that what you guys are deciding is not just one person's decision, but it is the collective's decision. And so these ICs, ICJPAs are so powerful. And what we have found is every time we work with teachers specifically and very intentionally on building ICs and ICJPAs around standards, the students typically end up like really blowing us out of the water. Like they just blow it out of the water on any assessments that assess that particular standard. So really powerful stuff, but the students are doing so much more talking in these different types of activities. All right, got just a couple minutes left, but time for a little bit of reflection. What'd you notice or wonder about the ICJPAs or the JPAs, and how do you think that this also benefits? How else do you think this benefits multilingual learners?
I think it will help our students become more comfortable talking. They will be more engaged with each other and probably form relationships where they'll want to talk.
Yeah, for sure. I want to remind you guys that okay, let me say this. Do you think that For Nikki's kids, that was the first time that they ever did an ICJPA?
No,
Likely not. Right. Right, Valerie, you're like, heck
not
no.
at all.
No. And you
They were so
heard,
good
right?
at it. I
They
was
were
like super
exactly.
impressed.
I know. It's super. Me too. The very first time I watched the video, I was like blown away by just how amazing these kids were in having these conversations and engaging with each other and really thinking about voice equity. Like, just fabulous. But it's a culture, and it is built over time. It's not something that immediately your kids are going to do. I always share with folks the first time that Holly, the teacher whose classroom I was in, the first time we ran a JPA, it was such a disaster. So, and it just did not go the way that we had hoped it would go. But we learned from it. You pick yourself back up, you figure out what worked, what didn't work, and you move on and you keep trying it. And so it's a culture. It does have to be built over time. And those habits of collaboration tools are going to be so necessary in helping you to be able to get there. All right, I've got like a minute left, so I'm going to go quickly. So here are some next steps for you to think about. So I created this playbook. I'm working with my team on finalizing it. It is not 100% ready yet, but if you're interested, when it is ready, I'm willing to push it out to you to share with you this playbook. The intention behind this playbook is to give you some things, some tools, some resources to consider as you are launching your school year. The hope is that if you set these habits of collaboration up within the first 30 days, by mid-September, your kids will be rocking and rolling and ready to have these independent JPAs where you don't really have to be facilitating it all the time. It starts with like week 1, working on norms and conversation Q1, encouraging talk. Week 2, working on conversation goals and getting the kids to really listen to understand. Week 3, focusing on academic talk, working with them on the various ways academic language shows up and showing them using sentence starters and sentence structures how to respond to these types of questions so that they can really deepen their thinking. And then in week 4, finally, that collaborative piece where now we're working with each other and learning how to expand with each other. The Merit Center also has these fabulous bookmarks. They're conversation starters, and the conversation starters are very general. They're more about helping the kids to have conversations with each other. So you heard, for example, a couple of the kids say, I respectfully agree. I agree with, what do you think? Those kinds of things, those kinds of sentence structures are like these things that they teach using these conversation starters. They're more general to help kids to have these conversations with each other. They're not specific to, like in week 3, the academic talk, but that's what you would do because that helps with that interaction, that back and forth that we want to see. When we share this presentation, when we do this presentation with teachers, we talk a lot about ping pong versus pinball. We want to see pinballing like that. We want to see the kids bouncing back and forth and having these conversations. And those conversation starters do help with that. Okay. So like I said, it's still in draft right now, but when it is ready, I would be happy to push it out to you if you were interested. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I've shared a bunch of stuff with you tonight, foundational things, but I really hope that if anything, you walk away tonight saying, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to launch this school year to really build quality interactions for my students, for my ML students. And I'm going to start with these various tools. I'm going to start with goal setting. I'm going to start with norms. I'm going to start by looking into these conversation cues and being able to start fusing them into my instruction. I want you to be thinking about that. And as we wrap up, tell me one idea that really resonated with you that you want to take back and start using to lay the foundation for your classrooms.
One of the things I'm definitely going to be mindful of, we have common lessons, and I'm going to make sure that I adapt mine so that there's more engagement between my students and I'm talking a lot less.
I love it.
And the other thing is making sure this year, we didn't do this last year, but making sure that we set the goals with the students.
Yes.
And that the other students know what the goals are so that they can encourage each other. I think
Love
that's
it.
going to be valuable.
Love it. Anyone else? If you want to drop it in the chat, you could do that.
I mean, I loved your plan, Anna, the 30
Yeah.
days. Because
Yeah.
every year, I know that it sounds so silly. It's like my brain just like short circuits at the beginning of the year because it's like I do
Right.
that period of like introducing the rules every year, but for some reason it's like I've never like I guess I've never kept detailed notes on what I do, and every year I try something different, and I've never like made a consistent plan. And I'm always like kind of scrambling, like thinking, what do I do? So like having a good solid 4 weeks, that probably is honestly how long it's going to take
Yeah,
to
for
introduce
sure.
them to the
Yep.
conversation norms.
Yep.
Like
That's what I
that's
was
exciting
thinking.
to me.
So one of my teammates had shared that EL education rolls out the conversation cues really slowly. And so I was wondering like, and I had been asking like, what is a good time frame? What's a good time frame? I don't know what really slowly is. And so if any of you guys know, are familiar with EL education, you can let me know. And one of my other teammates was like, well, the thing is that like not a lot of teachers have actually been implementing the conversation queue. So we don't even really know what that looks like right now. It's still pretty new to our district. We're probably in like our 4th year of using the curriculum after a year of pilot and then a year of like letting some schools do it and some schools didn't do it. 3rd year last year, everybody was doing it. So this is year 4 of using EL education. So I'm not sure exactly like when the cues are being introduced, but my thought was if you start with these norms and you start with the conversation goals and you try to gradually leverage the conversation cues in them, that the reality is the cues like goal, I think I want to say maybe goal 3 is what takes a little bit more time because you want to teach kids to justify, you want to teach kids to analyze, and you want to teach kids to do various kinds of academic language, and it takes practice. And so I think that's the reality is it takes practice and it takes a little bit more time. So you might end up spending a little bit more time on goal 3, but the hope though is that if you're intentional, and I love that Jenny kicked us off with that word, if you're intentional and you're really being mindful of that, you're going to help set your kids up for some really phenomenal success. So thank you for sharing, Valerie, and thank you, Anne Marie, and thank you, Danielle, for dropping your thoughts in the chat. So yeah, I can't wait to share this with you guys as soon as it is ready to go. All right, Maria, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's give Dr. Yang an applause. I was looking for my little my little what do you call it? The little animated thing.
Love
But
it.
yeah, thank you for sharing that wonderful information and your expertise. And we really appreciate the time that you've all shared with us. We appreciate you attending this evening and just wanted to give you a heads up that our next event is coming in August with Dr. Elisa Leckie, who is also a Georgia TESOL board member, among many other things. And so she'll be presenting on language and identity. And also, please, if you haven't already, visit our Georgia TESOL website. We have some really cool merchandise that is available for a limited time leading to our conference, which is in October. So we hope to see all of you there at our Georgia TESOL annual conference in Athens. But we have some really cool items for sale in the merchandise tab on our website. And with that, we wish you a very good evening and a fabulous end to your weekend or week, and the weekend coming up. Fabulous Friday, wonderful weekend, all of that. And have a good night.
Yep. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, y'all.